Today we're going to be diving into one of my grandest conspiracies yet. I have good reason to believe that there are agents of Satan that walk among us and conspire with the legions of hell. Today we're going to be looking into whether bald people work for the devil, and how we can ascertain if that bald guy you know is just follically challenged or an agent of Lucifer. The first thing that we need to clear up is, how does one become afflicted with the bald? Well, we could look at it scientifically. Male androgenetic alopecia is the medical term for hair loss, and it affects around 40% of men. It's genetic, and it can mostly only happen to you if you have a specific androgen receptor gene, which leads to the expression of a specific type of androgen receptor. These receptors then have a far higher affinity to react with the hormone dihydrotestosterone. This increased reaction causes a buildup of excess DHT around the hair follicle, which causes it to shrink. Over time, this leads to the thinning and eventual balding of the hair. Or so they want you to think. You think DHT stands for dihydrotestosterone? No. It actually stands for devil horn trauma. You might think it's the reaction of hormones within the body, but what actually causes male androgenetic alopecia is small little demons inside your skull mass reproducing. And with such little space within the skull, it forces the demons to arrange themselves in patterns such as this. This ultimately leads to their horns pushing the hair follicle out of place and subsequently causing hair loss. I like my theory on DHT more than the currently accepted theory because supposedly the isoflavones in soy reduce DHT and slow down hair loss, which is a phenomena that is clearly contradictory to reality and cannot be explained by the current science, TM. Anyway, over the course of this balding process, the victim will slowly but surely throw their lot in with the devil, as the increased devil presence within their brain not only causes baldness of the head, but also baldness of the soul, allowing them to be easily swayed by the whispers of the great deceiver. Now that's the physiological mechanism for their bald-faced devilry, but there's also a psychological role. You often hear of the term the 9 circles of hell. Yeah, that's not actually accurate. It's actually 7 circles, and it's based on the Norwood scale. Each of the phases of the Norwood scale represent the level of demonic influence that the bald person is under, and conveniently, the stages also coincide with the stages of grief. Stage 1 is shock, as the balding person will realize that their hair is starting to thin in problem areas. There's no demonic contact for most at stage 1 though. Stage 2 is denial. The balding person will play it off as just a bad haircut or that they're having a bad hair day, and will try to cover up the thinner spots. At stage 2, there may be small signs of demonic contact, but similar to stage 1, nothing overt or forward. Stage 3 is anger. The balding person will usually get angry and lash out at the situation of his head, and this is where some will get extremely emotional, something the devil likes to play off of. Stage 4 is bargaining. The balding individual will try to look for a way to stop the baldness progression and try to use serums and creams, etc. This is usually where the devil will make first contact and, as the name of the stage suggests, will bargain with the balding individual. It usually just starts with whispers in the mind of the bald person at night, slowly trying to coax them. Stage 5 is depression. The climax of the emotional outburst and the failure of the bargaining stage lead them to this extremely hopeless and low mood. At this stage, full contact will have been made with the demonic entities, and an offer will be presented to the balding person as a sort of out for their condition. Stage 6 is testing. The person is now almost completely bald and with only thin wisps of hair covering their gleaming bald heads. At this stage, the balding person will most likely be in full contact with the devil as they straighten out the details of their arrangement and seek to close out their deal. Stage 7 is acceptance. The bald person, now fully bald, accepts their deal with the devil and works to carry out his mission. The person, now content with both their baldiness and their devil deal, will accept that this is what was meant for them all along. A truly horrifying and dark process that many have to face. Now let's talk about how they try to hide amongst us. When you see a bald person, what do you mostly see when they're out and about? If you said headwear, you're correct. Bald people love to cover their heads with caps, hats, wigs, whatever. You name it, they wear it. What could the reason for this possibly be? Could it be a soul-crushing insecurity about the fact that they're bald? Or is it because they're trying to hide their devil horns? In various cultures, the idea of making a deal with the devil often entails gaining physical features of a devil. A lot of the time it's the horns, sometimes the tail. Now, obviously, if you were to walk around the streets with devil horns protruding, people might take offense. They might even burn you at the stake for being in league with the devil. So, to avoid this, bald people will cling to their headwear as if it was sewn onto their skin. I actually have a perfect case study that illustrates my point perfectly. Here is Tim Pool, famous podcaster. He's known for wearing his beanie everywhere. Some people say he showers with it on. My research into this came up inconclusive. But as you can see, he wears his beanie everywhere. Now, take a look at this video of someone taking it off his head and how he reacts to almost blowing his cover. Let's take a look.
To put billboards all across the country with the dictionary definition of the word bigot.
You are the oppressor!
I had to steal your hat.
Some would argue that Tim's response is because he is viscerally ashamed of his baldness, but the truth is, we almost saw his horns, and the proof that we needed to know that he actually indeed is in league with the devil. I actually took a screenshot of a frame where you can actually see the horns slightly. Oops, hang on a minute, yep. Yes, as you can see, there's quite clearly distinct horn shapes that are protruding. This is completely unedited footage, by the way. If we just skip to the end part of the video now.
You wanna know why I fucking wear the hat? Yeah. So these motherfuckers can't fucking recognize me when I'm on the street. You wanna take a picture of me so that I'm easily identifiable? There's no photos of me without this.
You can see he tries to explain away his shame by claiming that he's using the beanie as a disguise, but we all know exactly what's going on. You can't hide from the Lord. On an unrelated note, that fat lady is extremely obnoxious, can I just say.
Matthew Colligan! Get the fuck back to your mother's house! You piece of shit! You filmed black people! And you made fun of my comrades!
The next reason why I believe bald people work for the devil is in the word itself. Look at the actual word for bald. Bald. Baal. You know Baal, one of the ancient Canaanite demons? Yeah, that Baal. Baal worship is explicitly mentioned in the Bible and is actually one of the primary reasons that God banished the Israelites. Referenced in the Bible in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 19, verse 5-6, they have built the high places of Baal to burn their children in the fire as offerings to Baal, something I did not command or mention, nor did it enter my mind. So beware, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when people will no longer call this place Topheth, or the valley of Ben Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. So the Israelites were worshipping this ancient demon Baal, to whom they were sacrificing their children. And this was one of the behaviors that eventually led to God destroying and scattering them. I have to say, it's a good thing that they don't do that anymore. Anyway, it's quite clear that anything Baal related is easily evil and akin to the devil. So, for bald people to name their condition after an ancient Canaanite demon is further proof of the conspiracy that bald people work for the devil. Also, putting these two ideas together, you can come to the conclusion that being bald runs you the risk of being destroyed and scattered by God. So, something to keep in mind for all the would-be servants of Satan. Now, this next part is going to come as a shock to many of you. Would you believe me if I told you that communism is actually a bald man conspiracy? Seizing the means of production of what exactly? Hair follicles? Think about it. When you think of the aristocracy and the bourgeoisie, what is a common theme that you'll see? They are the bigwigs, quite literally. So it only makes sense that those rocking a skullet would be ideologically opposed, and logically it makes sense that Vladimir Lenin, a notoriously balding man, would be the leader of the first ever communist state. And what did he call his first communist party? The Bolsheviks. And what did the Bolsheviks try to do? Yes, that's right, wipe out the borzoi dog breed, a breed famous for having long hair. That's true, by the way. If you want to know more about that, maybe check out my dog racism video. That's not all though. There's even a famous quote by Lenin that people have mistranslated. The mistranslation is as follows: there are decades where nothing happens and weeks where decades happen. When in reality, the real quote is actually, there are decades where nothing's thinning and weeks when balding happens. A simple mistranslation, but one that many people are unaware of. Furthermore, if you think that baldmunism ended with Lenin just because Stalin had hair and was his successor, then you clearly haven't been paying attention. Like all things communist, you had to share. So the skinwigs had to share their power with the wigwigs, with every leader that was bald having to have been succeeded by a non-baldy, who would then be succeeded by a baldy, and on and on. Lenin, bald. Stalin, hair. Beria, bald. Malenkov, hair. Khrushchev, bald. Brezhnev, hair. Andropov, bald. Chernenko, hair. Gorbachev, bald. Yeltsin, hair. Putin, bald. Medvedev, hair. And finally Putin, bald again. So, if you want to know who's going to be the next Russian president, bet on someone with a good head of hair. Now that the bald communism connection has been thoroughly explained, how does communism relate to the devil and, by extension, make bald people his servants? And to that, I say, I don't know, you can probably Google it or something. Anyway, the next reason why I believe the bald are enthralled to the Dark Lord relates to aerodynamics and heat dissipation. As we've just discussed at the beginning of the video, the true pathology of baldness originates in mini demons in your skull. This demon follicle reaction is actually very exothermic, as you can imagine. And this reaction is the reason why bald people have very warm heads. It's true. Every time I've had the pleasure of stroking a bald man's head, it has always been very warm, which is counterintuitive to what you'd expect given the lack of hair. Another thing I've noticed in my research is that even though they are visually bald, you can still feel very tiny spikes on the surface of their heads. You might think that they're the last hairs of a balding man, but no, they are little devil horns that are poking through. Next time you see a bald man, go up to him and fondle his head. It's an experiment that you should definitely try at home. I'd be a little wary though, as if they realize that you've caught on, they might have to silence you to avoid the truth coming out. Now, bald head aerodynamics. Most people know being bald does have the benefits of decreased drag and increased aerodynamics. The smoother the object, the lesser the effects of wind resistance. Now, that improvement is very marginal for an average person running at an average speed, but if you were working with the devil, it is no doubt that they'd have given you powers to carry out your assignments. Being bald running at a normal speed isn't much different, but going at 1,000 miles per hour to travel to a summoning ritual or something, being bald will have a much larger effect on your aerodynamics and also with the amount of heat you would generate. Thus, the bald head is necessary to avoid slowing down too much at high speeds. The final reason why I believe that bald people work for the devil is that they use their bald heads as signal repeaters for evil. Normal people's heads, if used to bounce signals, will introduce a lot of noise, due to their hair causing the signal to bounce around before being repeated. Bald people, however, don't have this limitation, and so any signal bounced off their heads will be repeated perfectly. So let me break it down for you. It goes evil devil space laser to a chain of bald people's heads and then to the target receiver. This method of signal communication uses light the same way fiber optic does, and due to the larger surface area of bald heads, you can transmit terabytes of data per second. It's currently the fastest way to transfer data across the world, all done wirelessly. This then explains why you often see bald people just standing around in public, seemingly doing nothing. when in actuality, they are transferring petabytes of data globally. Ever wonder why you only see 1 or 2 bald people in a place at a time? It's for data relay efficiency and noise reduction. Now, the question is, what is the data they're transferring and what are they going to do with it? Well, I don't know because I'm not bald, but if I had to put my money on anything, it's probably something to do with Palantir. So it's probably best to keep an eye out on what they're up to. Anyway, that's all the reasons why I believe that bald people secretly work for the devil. If you're balding, this is what you can look forward to, and if you're already bald, let me know the details of your arrangement in the comments below. But other than that, thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye.